Hello friends, welcome to KGS IAS English YouTube channel and welcome to our economic survey series. As you all know, we had started this economic survey series and today we will discuss chapter number 5, that is inflation tamed and anchored. Friends, this particular series is very important, especially in context of prelims as well as mains. So if you hadn't watched lecture number 1 to lecture number 4, do watch that lectures first because these are very important and UPSC in general ask these questions in prelims and mains from the survey part. So let's start this particular chapter. Let's talk first about the inflation. So what is the meaning of inflation, friends? Inflation simply means sustained rise in price of goods and services over a period of time. That means there must be a continuous rise in price of goods and services over a period of time. Apart from the rise in price of goods and services, there must be an increase in the percentage change as well. Let's say a 1 kg coffee cost 100 rupees in 2018. Then it costs 300 rupees, then it costs 700 rupees, then it costs 1500 rupees. So there is increase in price and the percentage change is also increasing. This is inflation. What is deflation? Sustained fall in price of goods and services is called as deflation. And what is disinflation? Disinflation means when the prices of goods and services increasing but the percentage change falls. For example, the price of coffee is 100, then it increased to 150, then it increased to 170, but the percentage change is falling. That is disinflation. So if we talk about the global inflation, the global headline inflation is around 8.7% in 2022 and now it is 4.2% around 2025. So what is headline inflation? Headline inflation means which cover all goods and services produced in an economy. So headline inflation is around 8.7% in 2022 and it is standing at 4.2% in 2025. So if we talk about the advanced economies, it stabilized around 2 to 3% and that's a good sign. Whereas for emerging market and developing economies, it fell from 9.7%. Once it rose to 9.7% and that shows it is moving on the galloping side. But now it falls to 5.3%. If we talk about India's projection, IMF said that India's inflation will be around 2.8% in financial year 2026 and in financial year 2027 it will be around 4%. Whereas what is RBI projected, that is for financial year 2026 India's inflation is around 2% and for financial year 2027 it will be 4%. Now, what are the drivers of global inflation? What are the drivers of global inflation means why this inflation is at that particular level? What are the reasons behind that? The first reason is food prices become stable and then negative. The basic reason why this inflation increases or why the headline inflation increases is because of volatile items. Food, fuel, energy items, these all are volatile items. So whenever their prices increases, it enhances the inflation. Now, inflation can be increased through two ways. First is demand pull inflation. Demand pull inflation means when the aggregate demand exceeds aggregate supply. And why this aggregate demand increases? When the people's income increases or when the government increases the expenditure, that is fiscal stimulus, government creating more jobs, or there is expectation that in future the income will increase. These are the factors which led to increase in demand pull inflation. The another reason is cost push inflation, where apart from demand the cost of the product increases because the raw material become expensive, government increases the taxes, bank increases the interest rates, global supply chain bottleneck happen, recently the Strait of Hormuz issue. This is cost push inflation. So food prices become stable and then negative. This is the main reason why headline inflation actually fall. Then oil prices decline by more than 20%. This is very important as oil is again very volatile. As I mentioned, headline inflation include the volatile item, that is food, fuel, energy items. So oil prices decline by more than 20%. Then this is the major reason why global inflation reduces. Apart from that, metal prices, if we talk about iron ore is being used in many manufacturing part, so it is low. Aluminium increased but moderately by 13%. Copper prices increase, that is by 32%. So copper prices increase because of AI data center demands, supply constraint, and lower metal prices earlier helped to reduce industrial cost. So this is the reason why the global inflation remain at these targeted level. So that is the major issue, that the volatile item prices is under control, and that will give us support to overall the world economies, and this is the major reason why inflation is under the control. If we talk about India's domestic inflation, India's high growth plus low inflation, that is ideal position. We also referred it to Goldilocks outcome, and we will discuss just after that what is the meaning of this Goldilocks economy, because it is very trending, very important, and especially in UPSC prelims it can be asked. So if we talk about CPI inflation, now in India, inflation is measured through WPI and CPI both. WPI is through which is covering only goods, CPI cover goods and services. But while the inflation targeting is done by the central government, that is 4% plus minus 2%, this is the inflation targeting. This inflation targeting is done by central government. RBI give the recommendation, and this inflation targeting is based on CPI inflation. Now, CPI inflation has an advantage that it includes goods and services both. But the major items in the CPI inflation, the basket of CPI inflation, include more percentage of food items. So whenever the food prices increases, CPI inflation increases. So if we talk about the CPI inflation trend, it is around 6.7% in financial year 2023, just little high from this particular target. But if we talk about the financial year 2026, in context of that, it is around 1.7%. So this is the major reason that the CPI inflation is under control. Why food inflation actually fell? What are the reason why food inflation fell? The reason is favorable monsoon. First reason is favorable monsoon, then high production enhances. Government also intervene whenever it is necessary. So whenever the price escalates, the government intervene. Production also enhances. Favorable monsoon play an important role because Indian economy is still dependent a lot on monsoonal factors, especially the agriculture component. So the food prices is remain under the control because of this. So core inflation rose to 4.6%. Now this is very important. Core inflation rose to 4.6%. What is headline inflation? Headline inflation include all goods and services, but the core inflation exclude food and energy item. There are few specific words as I mentioned. First is core inflation. Core inflation, it exclude food and energy. It exclude food and energy. They are very volatile. Another is refined core. Now refined core exclude food, fuel and energy. In US, there is one more inflation, that is super core inflation, which exclude housing prices also apart from food, fuel and energy. But in India, we have two. One is core inflation, that is excluding food and energy, and another is refined core, which exclude food, fuel and energy. So core inflation rose to 4.6%, and that's show a sign of warning. Even if we are excluding the volatile item, we excluded food, we excluded energy items, we excluded the fuel items, still then also the core inflation increased to 4.6%, which shows that the price of other commodities increasing despite excluding the volatile items. Okay. Now, Goldilocks economy, it's very, very important, and a question may be asked in prelims as well as in mains regarding to this Goldilocks economy. So friends, what is this Goldilocks economy? Just a second. What is actually the meaning of this Goldilocks economy? Goldilocks economy simply means when inflation is not too high. That means inflation remain within the target range. So no pressure on prices and people's purchasing power remains stable. Apart from that, growth is not too low. Growth is also accelerating, and as per IMF, they had projected that India is one of the most fastest growing economy in the world. So jobs are being created, investment is happening, economy is balanced. That means no overheating, no recession. So why this Goldilocks is rare? Because of the trade-off. If economy grow too fast, inflation increases. If inflation is controlled, growth slow down. As a result of that, it will also lead to recessionary trend in future. So achieving both, having a balance of no overheating and no recession, is rare. That's why it is considered as Goldilocks economy. So remember this thing, Goldilocks economy simply means inflation is under control. Then apart from that, growth is increasing as well as economy is balanced. Economy is balanced. That's why this Goldilocks economy is very important. Now, if we talk about the specific crop wise things why this inflation is under control, pulses structural excess demand. We have a huge demand for pulses and we import a lot of pulses, but it is managed through imports, it is managed through buffer stocks and through timely duties. Edible oil, 50% still dependency on import. So custom duties is used dynamically, raised when price crashed and reduced when price rose. So government is structurally managing all these issues like pulses, edible oils, because these are the imports and India import a lot of them. So government try to manage them structurally. That is through creating buffer stock, timely duties, and duties can be increased when the prices crashed and reduces when the prices rose. Apart from that, supply side strength. Agriculture and inflation usually go hand in hand. Because as I mentioned that headline inflation include the volatile item and food is the most volatile component. So if we have a good agricultural supply, it led to less inflation. So record cereal production thanks to good monsoon, rising oil seeds and pulses output, that Annadata Aay Sanrakshan scheme, PM Asha scheme, strong rabi sowing. Apart from that, timely release of buffer stock, maintenance of proper buffer stock by the Food Corporation of India. It all led to preventing the price spikes. So impact is food security is there, inflation is controlled and led to lower volatility as well. If we talk about the rural versus urban inflation, this question can be asked in prelims. Rural inflation is more volatile. That means the income, the demand of rural people is increasing, and which shows that the rural inflation is becoming more volatile. And the more the income of the rural people increases, they will consume more of protein rich food, and that enhances the higher food weight as well. Urban inflation is stable. Apart from that, rural inflation, because of food prices eased, because of good monsoon, rural inflation also fell lower. So earlier what used to happen before this scenario, rural inflation usually increasing because of more volatility and higher food weight. But as good monsoon happened, even the rural inflation is also under the control. So most states of India is within this range of 2 to 6%. Barring Lakshadweep and Kerala, which breach the upper limit. That means inflation increases more than 6% in Kerala and Lakshadweep. State level inflation, as I mentioned, most states within RBI band, Kerala 8%, Lakshadweep 6.7%, and positive relation is wage level enhances GSDP growth, negative relation is industrial share is there, or neutral if we talk about GST and fiscal deficits also have this reasons. Now the positive factor, why this inflation is under control? Because of good monsoon, strong food production, soft global commodity prices and the policy support by the government. But again, the risk is again dwelling out. The reason is currency depreciation. The more the rupee actually depreciate, the more the import cost enhances. And as I mentioned that pulses, edible oils, crude oil, all these things we import a lot. So if currency depreciates, we need to pay more money. Then the metal price increases. India also following the semiconductor mission. India is following the manufacturing policy through Atmanirbhar Bharat. All these things demand a lot of these metals and all this. So if their prices increases, inflation increase. Then global uncertainty, recently Trump tariffs, then the Israel, US and Iran war. All these create the global uncertainty, Strait of Hormuz blockage. Then precious metal prices increases that led to inflation. So friends, let's do some of the questions from this particular chapter. This chapter is small, not that big. So let's discuss few of the question. Consider the following statement regarding Goldilocks economy. A Goldilocks economy is characterized by sustained high economic growth along with low and stable inflation. True. Such an economic condition can emerge when supply side improvement reduce inflationary pressure without weakening aggregate demand. True. Goldilocks economy implies that monetary policy has been becoming irrelevant for macroeconomic stabilization. No, whatever the scenario is, whatever the economic phase is going on in your economy, monetary policy is most relevant there. So it's never being irrelevant. So this is wrong here. 1 and 2 are correct. So both 1 and 2 are correct. Only one of the statement 2 and 3 is correct, and that explain 1. So C is the right answer. Second statement is also explaining the first one. So C is the correct answer. Next question. Consider the following statement regarding inflation trend. A decline in food inflation can significantly reduce headline inflation due to its high weight in CPI. This is true. Reason is CPI basket has a highest percentage of food item, and headline inflation include all goods and services. So if there is decline in food prices, headline inflation will definitely get reduced. So this is true. Core inflation exclude volatile components such as food and energy, but may still be influenced by change in precious metal price. That's correct. Core inflation exclude food and energy, but still it contain many volatile items. Because of increase in the price of these volatile items, core inflation still can be increased. Example, if suppose food and energy item are excluded, that is core inflation, but if other component in the core inflation, the prices increases, core inflation increase. This is true. A persistent decline in inflation always indicate a contraction in aggregate demand. Not necessary. Inflation can even be fall if the prices of the goods fall. Demand remain at the same level, for example, but the prices of products fall. Let's say taxes government had reduced, bank reduces the interest rate, global supply chain is becoming strengthened. This can also lead to reduction in the prices. So third is the wrong statement. A, 1 and 2 are the right one. Consider the following statement regarding inflation measurement and trend. Food price decline create downward pressure on CPI, but final outcome depend on entire consumption basket. Very, very good, correct statement. CPI has a highest percentage of food item, that's true. But even if the food price is declining, but other components prices increases, then in that case also inflation increase. So food price decline create downward pressure on CPI, but the final outcome depending on entire consumption basket, that's true. Base effect can cause inflation to decline even when current prices are increasing. That's again true. Even base effect, because of base effect, the prices may fall. But even the current price is increasing, and that's the situation of disinflation. Suppose the price of coffee is 100, then in the next year it is 120, then in the next year it is 130. Then price is increasing, but if you compare with the base year, the percentage change actually falls. That's the reason the second statement is correct. A divergence between headline inflation and core inflation may arise due to volatility. That's true. Core inflation is actually excluding the item of food and energy, and headline inflation include those volatile item as well. So the right answer is D, 1, 2, 3. Moving to the next question, question number 4. Headline inflation. It include all components of CPI, include volatile item. So 1 is with C. 1 is with C. Core inflation. Measure inflation excluding food and energy. Second is A. Then base effect, statist where yes, third is with D. GDP deflator, reflect change in price of all goods and services produced in the economy. Yes, it doesn't include the imported goods. So fourth is B. How? So no pair is correctly matched. None is the correct answer. So friends, this is regarding to chapter number 5 of economic survey. I hope you get it, like what all is important in this particular chapter, and I hope you are all enjoying this series. Do share, do subscribe, and do mention in the comment if you really like this series. Thank you and God bless you.